It's Friday afternoon in Sydney, and that means it's time for Friday Beers. Stu, we had our second conference yesterday, actually.
Yes.
Life Sciences Conference. Tell us about that.
It was a great event. We pretty much packed the room out at the offices of Baker McKenzie here in Sydney, and thank you to Bakers for hosting us for that event. It was a great day. We had a keynote from Rick Holliday-Smith, who's the chairman of the ASX and a great proponent of life sciences investment in Australia. Then we heard from a lot of companies which don't have much of a market profile at the moment, companies you've probably never heard of like Osteopore and Biogene Technology, that I think are the next wave of really strong life sciences companies in Australia. We'll get the videos out from that meeting shortly, but so stay tuned for that. But it was a great meeting, and thank you for everyone who was involved.
And the best part is next year we'll have 4 conferences.
Yes.
So we did semiconductors in May. This time around we did life sciences,
yes.
And we'll have 4 more next year. We'll keep you posted on that.
Yes. Now, from a lot of fun in life sciences, not fun at Westpac at the moment. Brian Hartz has just fallen on his sword. The stock's dropping like a stone. It's down under 26 at the moment.
Yeah.
And obviously the GSC low is $16. If the trend is in the right direction, it could be headed back there. What's gone wrong at Westpac?
Yeah, basically lack of proper oversight.
Right.
Transactions that should have been reported that didn't get reported.
Right.
And the lame excuse of the bank was, we didn't know.
Yeah.
Well, it's the bank's job to know this sort of stuff.
That's part of its banking 101 basically, is to comply with financial regulations.
So that's
Your
no
health,
excuse.
sir.
Cheers. So so share price has come down quite a bit.
Right.
And the whole Westpac story has been in the papers, so we don't need to repeat all that. But from a contrarian point of view,
I think this is a screaming buy. I'm more excited about Westpac than I have been since '92, when Kerry Packer was tilting for the company and it almost ended up in control of it before the company began to rescue itself from the recession of the early '90s. I can see us going back to that level. You've got a dividend yield of 6.4% at the moment.
Purely looking at the fundamentals, so dividend yield is interesting. It's around the highest of all banks.
Right.
You've got a price to book of 1.3.
Right.
Just by comparison, CBA is at 2.
Yeah.
Right. So it looks cheap on that metric as well. PE 13, which is again a lot cheaper than CBA. Sort of in line with NAB and a bit more expensive than ANZ.
There's one downside here. It's a bank.
It's a bank. Yeah.
Right. Now, let me tell you about a game that I heard about recently, where there was Santa Claus, an honest banker, and Donald Trump in the same room, and there's a $50 note in the middle of the room. Who got there first?
Who?
Donald Trump, because the other two don't exist.
Yeah. Try to find an honest banker.
Right,
Good
okay.
luck.
Thankfully, we haven't had to borrow money to build Pitt Street Research, because I think we'd be blackballed after this.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Now, some contrarian work that we've been involved in, some of the research that we've published lately. Tell us about the Sincera report we just published.
Yeah, so Sincera, manufacturer of MEMS, which are really tiny devices, most used as sensors in mobile phones, but all sorts of devices, including in fluidics for cardiovascular devices, for instance. So for Sincera, the medical vertical is actually the most promising one.
Right.
They had a bit of a rough quarter. Share prices come down on the back of that. But if you look at where they are now, they raised some capital and they're basically covered in terms of working capital.
Right.
So there's tremendous growth, but they were a bit restrained in that in terms of capital. So that's all solved now. So we wrote about that. That's published. Then we did a report on Real Energy.
Real Energy. So unconventional gas play in the Queensland sector of the Cooper Basin in South Australia. There's 4 successful wells drilled into that, and they've got billions of dollars worth of gas in the resource that they've identified in the project there in Cooper Basin,
right.
Ready to plug into the regular pipelines and ship to the east coast. The stock is undervalued at the moment, we think, because they've got to drill a few more wells, so they're looking for a farming partner there.
But planning to start production next year, right?
It's not unreasonable to see them in production next year, given the scale of the resource. And as many would know, there's the potential for the lights to start going out on the east coast of Australia, given the lack of gas in this part of the country.
Right.
And this would feed right into a high gas price environment if it works.
Interesting.
And Credit Intelligence from Hong Kong.
Yeah, believe it or not, the troubles in Hong Kong are actually driving their business, because this is a debt restructuring business for the large part of it in Hong Kong. So the declines in Hong Kong right now in terms of economic growth is really driving their business.
Right.
And they've expanded into Singapore And so I think that is really a good thing for them as well, because we see a lot of sort of business moving from Hong Kong to Singapore.
Yep.
So yeah, Credit Intelligence, we publish a note on that one.
And there was an interview a while ago with Jimmy Wong, their CEO.
Yeah, that's it's on our website, so have a look at that. So those were the 3 reports, I think, for last week.
Right. Now, we're going to start a new item now on Friday Beers. It's called Good Cop, Bad Cop.
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
So today we're going to do Good Cop, Bad Cop on Telstra, a stock that tends to divide investors in terms of their attitude. Now, I'm bullish and you're bearish.
Yep.
So, Mark, tell me what you don't like about Telstra. If the stock, remember, is up 25% this year, what's wrong with you?
There's a lot I don't like about Telstra. I've seen
Right.
this all play out in Europe more than 10 years ago, where there was continued pressure on fixed line business, on the mobile business.
Right.
On top of that, Telstra's got to deal with NBN,
Yep.
and as they call it, some headwind, which is a nice euphemism.
Right.
That's the big nightmare, I'd call
Basically,
it.
every time you plug an NBN customer in, NBN reaps the lion's share of the profits of that customer, right?
Yeah, so the cost for telcos are pretty high.
Right.
But in general, we've seen years of declines of revenues, of EBITDA margins, and hence of EBITDA, and
Right.
that's projected into the next 3-4 years. So I've got a little chart I'll put up now, which you can see there is revenues just keep coming down.
Right.
And so I'm not bullish on that. So this dividend, 4.3%, which is nice. Right? It's not shooting the lights out compared to banks, for instance, but it's really an issue with their underlying business on the mobile side, with ARPUs continuing to come down. I don't think 5G is a solution either. So that's 5G is coming now,
Right.
But there's all sorts of other alternatives, from other providers.
Right.
So I don't think that's going to save the day for Telstra. I see
Yeah.
too many negatives there.
Okay, so let's talk about 5G. Every time a new generation of telecommunications comes in, Telstra gets a boost. The customers. Well, here's my 4G phone here. The customers will go down and get a 5G phone, and naturally, as they get excited by all the new things they can do with 5G, they're likely to shop at the Telstra shop. And we've talked about 5G before. It's streets ahead of what we've experienced today with 4G, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right.
Absolutely. But what happened with 3G and with 4G, and what happened to just fixed internet, it's commoditizing most of the time really quickly.
Right.
So what you see is that even with 5G, it's going to happen.
Right.
It's just commoditizing, and again, that will drive down margins.
Yeah. The other thing that my colleague misses here, I think he hasn't quite shaken off the European environment here. Remember, Australia is a country of very concentrated business focus. As in key sectors, there'll be companies that just dominate and continue to dominate. That's why Qantas is still dominant in domestic airlines, for example. Same with Telstra. So the brand loyalty of this company it will surprise people looking at the country from outside. I think that there's a lot of brand resilience left in Telstra. Now, throw in the fact that they're actually aiming to get $2.5 billion out of their business just through simplification measures. I think that's quite powerful. So you're going to see a fair bit of free cash flow coming out of this baby, even on declining ARPUs. Throw that in with a 5G boost, which I can see there'll be other providers.
Right.
But Telstra will still get a fair share of that market. And I think there's more where that baby came from.
Let's have a look at the chart, and we'll find out who's right about this one.
All right.
A year from now.
All right. Well, you're going down, Mark.
What the worst thing, what I'm afraid of with Telstra is they'll do some dumb acquisition.
Right.
And have to write
We've
it off
seen that before.
a couple of years later.
Right.
It happens with all the telcos that are looking for revenue in all the wrong places. So anyway.
Now, okay, so the beer for today. This is Goose IPA. Now, Goose Island was a craft brewer that got ultimately ended up in the Anheuser-Busch empire, as did Carlton United Breweries down here. So this is brewed locally under license from the Goose Island folks. 5.9% on the alcohol, 55% on the IBU, so nicely hopped up. It's probably Centennial is the hop that's giving it the flavour. If you were to just bring in some of the English hops as well as the Styrian one from the Hallertau that was the basis for Centennial, you can do the same thing. Either way, it's very pleasant drinking. I think I could go back to this one again. Nice and dependable.
It needs a burger to go with it. On that note.
On that note, happy investors, happy weekend investors, and see you next week.
Cheers.
Bye.